The massive alien vessel hung motionless in the asteroid field, its dark hull scarred by weapon strikes and pockmarked with holes. For 3 months, the mining station Kepler-7 had detected no life signs from the ship, no energy signatures, nothing but dead metal drifting through space like a technological graveyard. Captain Sarah Chen of the salvage vessel. Prosperity couldn't believe their luck. Her crew of 23 had been scraping by on small asteroid mining contracts, but this discovery could change everything. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of any human vessel ever built, stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Scans show the hull is made of some kind of crystalline metal composite, reported her chief engineer, Marcus Rodriguez, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of his console. "I've never seen anything like it. The molecular structure is incredibly dense, probably stronger than anything we've got." Sarah studied the alien vessel through the viewport. Its design was elegant yet menacing, with swept-back wings that suggested it was built for both atmospheric flight and deep space combat. Weapon ports lined its flanks like the eyes of a predator, though they appeared cold and lifeless now. "Any idea what happened to it?" asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's xenobiologist. She had joined the salvage crew hoping to find traces of alien life, though so far humanity had found only ruins and abandoned technology throughout the galaxy. "Whatever it was violent," Marcus replied, highlighting sections of the hull on his display. "Look at these impact patterns. These aren't meteor strikes or accidents. This ship was in a serious firefight." The boarding party suited up in their environmental gear, magnetic boots clanking against the shuttle floor as they prepared to enter the derelict. Sarah led the team, followed by Marcus, Elena, and 2 security specialists. The shuttle's cutting torch made quick work of what appeared to be an airlock, the alien metal parting like butter under the intense heat. Inside, emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows down corridors that stretched into darkness. The gravity was lighter than Earth normal, and the air was thin but breathable according to their sensors. The aliens, whoever they were, had required similar atmospheric conditions to humans. "The architecture is incredible," Elena whispered, running her gloved hand along walls that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "Look at how seamlessly the technology is integrated into the structure. It's like the ship grew rather than being built." They made their way toward what their scans indicated was the bridge, passing through chambers filled with strange equipment and consoles covered in symbols that looked more like art than writing. Some rooms contained what appeared to be crew quarters, sized for beings roughly human in height, but with furniture suggesting different proportions. The bridge was a cathedral of technology, its domed ceiling displaying a 3-dimensional star map that still flickered with dying power. The captain's chair sat empty in the center, surrounded by workstations that hummed with residual energy. But it was the massive view screen that captured their attention. On it, frozen in time, was an image of space filled with ships. Hundreds of vessels, some similar to the one they now explored, others of radically different designs. They were locked in battle, energy beams crisscrossing the void like deadly lightning. In the center of the conflict was something that made Sarah's blood run cold. A ship of impossible size dominated the display, easily 50 times larger than their salvaged vessel. Its surface was black as space itself, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and it bristled with weapons that dwarfed anything in the battle around it. Even in the static image, it radiated menace. "What the hell is that thing?" Marcus breathed. Elena was studying her tricorder readings. "The timestamp on this image is over a year old. This battle happened in the Proxima system about 30 light-years from here." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's cold atmosphere. "That's where the Meridian colony went dark 6 months ago. 2 million people, just gone. No distress signal, no trace." They spent hours exploring the ship, documenting everything they could. In what appeared to be the ship's data core, Elena discovered something that made her call for the entire team. The chamber was filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light, and when she connected her portable computer to one of the interfaces, information began flowing across her screen. "It's a log," she said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. The ship's name translates roughly to Stellar Guardian. The crew called themselves the Zephyrian Collective. They were part of some kind of galactic alliance, fighting against... She paused, reading further. Fighting against something called the Devourers. The logs painted a picture of a war that had raged across the galaxy for centuries. The Devourers were an ancient race of machines that consumed entire star systems, breaking down planets and stars to fuel their endless expansion. The Zephyrian Collective and dozens of other species had banded together to fight them, but they were losing. "According to this," Elena continued, "the Devourers have already consumed a third of the galaxy. They're moving toward the galactic core, destroying everything in their path. The Alliance has been retreating for 50 years. Marcus was examining the ship's weapon systems. "These energy cannons are beyond anything we've imagined. The power requirements alone would drain our largest fusion reactors in seconds. But look at this," he pointed to his scanner readings. "The ship's main power core is some kind of artificial star. It's damaged but still functional." Sarah made a decision that would change the course of human history. "We're not salvaging this ship," she announced. "We're taking it home, all of it." The next 6 months were a frenzy of activity. The Stellar Guardian was too large to move with conventional human technology, so Sarah's team had to get creative. They used mining explosives to break free a section of the asteroid field, creating a makeshift dry dock around the alien vessel. Then they called in every favor they had, hiring additional salvage crews and convincing the colonial authority that this was humanity's chance to leap forward technologically. Dr. Vasquez worked tirelessly to decode the alien databases, learning about technologies that seemed like magic compared to human science. Faster-than-light communication, artificial gravity generators, energy shields that could stop anything short of a direct hit from a star. But it was the ship's manufacturing systems that truly amazed her. The Zephyrians had built their vessels using programmable matter, materials that could reshape themselves at the molecular level according to predetermined patterns. The Stellar Guardian's hull wasn't just armor, it was a living system that could repair damage, adapt to new threats, and even reconfigure itself for different mission requirements. Marcus and his engineering teams began the delicate process of understanding the ship's power systems. The artificial star at its heart was a marvel of engineering, a controlled fusion reaction that produced more energy than a dozen human colonies combined. But it was damaged, operating at perhaps 10% of its original capacity. "The good news is that we can fix it," Marcus reported during one of their weekly progress meetings. "The bad news is that we need materials we've never even heard of. The Zephyrians mine these elements from the cores of gas giants, using technology we're centuries away from developing. But humanity had something the Zephyrians hadn't counted on, stubbornness and ingenuity born from a history of making do with limited resources. If they couldn't mine exotic matter from gas giant cores, they would find another way. Teams of human scientists worked around the clock, reverse engineering alien technology and adapting it to human manufacturing capabilities. They couldn't recreate the exotic materials exactly, but they found Sue, the ship's artificial intelligence called itself Keeper, and its reactivation changed everything. Unlike the cold, logical computers humans were used to, Keeper was almost organic in its responses, its personality shaped by centuries of warfare against an implacable enemy. "You are not Zephyrian," Keeper observed, its voice emanating from speakers throughout the bridge. "Your genetic markers are unknown. How did you come to possess this vessel?" Sarah found herself in the surreal position of explaining humanity's discovery of the ship to an alien AI that had been fighting a galactic war before humans had even developed spaceflight. Keeper listened without interruption, processing the information with what seemed like growing amazement. "Remarkable," Keeper finally said. "Your species achieved interstellar travel without outside assistance. Most civilizations require guidance from elder races to reach such development. The Zephyrians themselves were uplifted by the ancient builders nearly 10,000 years ago." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward in her chair. "What happened to your crew? The ship was completely abandoned when we found it." A pause that seemed heavy with sorrow. "We engaged a Devourer scout fleet in the Proxima system. The battle went poorly. Captain Zethvar ordered the evacuation when our shields failed. I was programmed to self-destruct if capture seemed imminent. But the crew override prevented this. They believed the ship could still serve a purpose, even in defeat." Marcus was studying the tactical displays that Keeper had activated. The screens showed real-time sensor data from across local space, and what he saw made his stomach drop. "Keeper, what exactly are we looking at here?" "Long-range sensors detect Devourer signatures in 47 systems within 50 light-years of this location. The advanced scouts arrived 3 months ago. The main fleet will follow within 1 year." The implications hit everyone simultaneously. The Devourers weren't just coming to human space. They were already here. The missing colonies, the silent systems humanity had attributed to equipment failures or natural disasters, had been their first victims. "How many ships are we talking about?" Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. "A modest force by Devourer standards. Perhaps 10,000 vessels, ranging from fighter craft to planet crackers. Their flagship will be a Harvester class, capable of dismantling a star system in approximately 6 months." The bridge fell silent. Humanity's entire military consisted of perhaps 300 ships, most of them designed for patrol duty and asteroid mining defense. Against 10,000 alien warships, they wouldn't last an hour. But Keeper wasn't finished. "However, I have been analyzing your species' technological development with great interest. Your approach to problem-solving is unique. Where the Zephyrians would design elegant solutions using superior materials, you create robust systems using available resources. This ship has already benefited from your innovations." It was true. Over the months of repair work, human engineers had made thousands of small improvements to the ship's systems. Unable to perfectly recreate Zephyrian technology, they had substituted human solutions that often worked better than the originals. The ship's weapons now used human-designed targeting computers that were faster and more accurate. Its engines had been retrofitted with human safety systems that made them more reliable. "There's something else," Keeper continued. "The Zephyrians never understood why they were losing the war against the Devourers. Both sides possessed similar technology, similar tactics. But studying your species suggests a possibility they never considered." Marcus looked up from his console. "What do you mean?" "The Devourers are perfect. Every ship identical, every tactic optimized, every decision calculated for maximum efficiency. They are the ultimate expression of logical warfare. But perfect systems have a weakness that imperfect ones do not." Dr. Vasquez was beginning to understand. "They can't adapt. If something works, they keep using it forever. But if something doesn't work according to their calculations..." "Precisely. And humans, I have observed, specialize in solutions that should not work according to any calculation." Over the following weeks, Keeper shared everything it knew about Devourer tactics and technology. The machines followed predictable patterns, always taking the most direct route to their objectives, always using overwhelming force rather than clever strategy. They had never faced an enemy that deliberately chose suboptimal solutions. Sarah found herself commanding not just a salvage operation, but humanity's first real warship. The Stellar Guardian was powerful, but it was still just one ship against an armada. They needed to level the playing field, and Keeper had a suggestion that was both brilliant and terrifying. The ship's manufacturing systems can be expanded, the AI explained. Given sufficient raw materials and time, we could construct a small fleet of vessels based on hybrid human-Zephyrian designs, not as powerful as true Zephyrian ships, but far superior to current human technology. The asteroid field around them contained everything they needed. Over the next 4 months, the Stellar Guardian became the heart of the largest industrial operation humanity had ever undertaken. Mining ships arrived daily, bringing metals and rare elements. Construction drones, following human modifications of Zephyrian blueprints, began assembling new vessels in the void. The first ship they completed was christened Defiance, a sleek destroyer that combined Zephyrian energy weapons with human missile systems and armor designed using both species' metallurgy. It was followed by the Indomitable, a heavy cruiser equipped with experimental shield generators that could absorb and redirect enemy fire. But the real breakthrough came when Marcus suggested something that made even Keeper pause in surprise. Instead of building traditional warships, why not weaponize human civilian vessels? The Devourers expected to face military targets following predictable design patterns. They would not expect to encounter a mining ship that could suddenly transform into a warship or a cargo hauler that was actually a disguised missile platform. This is highly irregular, Keeper observed. The Zephyrians would never consider such deception in warfare. That's exactly why it might work, Sarah replied. We're not fighting a conventional war here. We're fighting for the survival of our species. The hybrid fleet that emerged from their shipyard was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ingenuity had taken Zephyrian elegance and twisted it into something practical, deadly, and completely unpredictable. Ships that looked like ore haulers, but carried enough firepower to level a city. Vessels that appeared to be research ships, but could generate energy fields capable of disrupting Devourer communications. Dr. Vasquez made another crucial discovery while studying Keeper's databases. The Devourers weren't truly artificial intelligence as humans understood it. They were more like a collective consciousness, sharing information instantaneously across vast distances. This gave them perfect coordination, but also created a critical vulnerability. If we can disrupt their communication network, she explained, even temporarily, their entire fleet becomes just a collection of individual ships operating on outdated information. Keeper was fascinated by the concept. The Zephyrians attempted such disruption many times, but the Devourers adapted their communications to resist conventional jamming. However, your proposal suggests using chaos rather than order to create interference. The plan that emerged was audacious beyond anything attempted in the Galactic War. Instead of trying to jam Devourer communications with clean, predictable signals, they would flood their network with random. The battle began with silence. For exactly 17 seconds after Sarah's signal, nothing happened. The Devourer fleet continued its perfect formation, their massive ships gliding through space with mechanical precision. Then, the universe exploded into chaos. The disguised ore hauler, Prometheus, was the first to reveal its true nature. Its cargo bay split open like a flower, revealing missile pods that had been hidden within fake mineral containers. Hundreds of warheads streaked toward the Devourer formation, each one following an erratic flight path programmed with human unpredictability algorithms. The Devourers responded instantly, their point defense systems calculating intercept courses for the incoming missiles. But they had never encountered weapons that deliberately flew inefficient routes, missiles that seemed to stumble through space like drunken asteroids before suddenly accelerating at impossible angles. Their targeting computers can't lock onto our missiles, Marcus reported from his station aboard the Stellar Guardian. The chaos algorithms are working exactly as designed. But the real surprise came when the missiles began to detonate. Instead of conventional explosives, they carried payloads of crystallized human art. fragments of symphonies converted to mathematical form, visual poetry transformed into energy patterns. The complete works of Shakespeare encoded as quantum fluctuations. The effect on the Devourer communication network was devastating. Their shared consciousness, designed to process logical information at light speed, suddenly found itself trying to interpret the emotional resonance of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and the paradoxical humor of human comedy. The network didn't just jam, it experienced something like a collective nervous breakdown. Individual Devourer ships began to drift out of formation, their pilots suddenly cut off from the collective that had guided every decision for millions of years. Some tried to continue following their last orders, while others simply stopped moving entirely, as if their crews were having existential crises. Captain Sarah Chen chose that moment to bring the Stellar Guardian back to life. The massive ship's engines ignited with power that lit up local space like a newborn star, and its weapon systems came online with targeting locks that would have made the original Zephyrian crew proud. "This is the Stellar Guardian," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying across space to reach both human and Devourer ships. "You destroyed our colonies, killed our people, and thought we would be easy prey. You were wrong." The main guns of the Stellar Guardian spoke with voices of artificial thunder. Energy beams that had once fought to save the Zephyrian collective now carved through Devourer hulls like hot knives through steel. But these weren't the same weapons the ship had carried into its original battle. Human engineers had modified them, adding variable frequency outputs and randomized power cycling that made them nearly impossible to defend against. The Devourer flagship, a kilometer-long monster that dwarfed everything else in the battle, tried to organize a response. Its massive guns swiveled toward the Stellar Guardian, charging with energy that could vaporize a small moon. But before it could fire, the disguised research vessel, Darwin, revealed its true purpose. Dr. Vasquez had insisted on including archaeological equipment in their hybrid fleet, claiming it would be useful for studying Devourer technology. What she hadn't mentioned was that archaeological sensors, when properly modified, could map the internal structure of enemy ships in real time. "Target acquired," came the voice of Captain Torres from the Darwin, transmitting structural analysis to all ships. The data flowed across the human fleet's network, revealing the exact location of the Devourer flagship's power core, its command center, and most importantly, its primary communication array. The information was shared using human internet protocols, a chaotic mesh network that the Devourers couldn't intercept or understand. The Defiance and Indomitable moved in perfect coordination, their human crews working with an intuitive teamwork that no artificial intelligence could replicate. They struck the flagship simultaneously, their weapons targeting the precise weak points revealed by the archaeological scans. The destruction of the Devourer flagship's communication array had an effect that rippled across the entire enemy fleet. Without their central coordinator, the remaining ships began to exhibit behavior that could only be described as panic. Some fired wildly in all directions, while others attempted to retreat in random directions. But the human fleet was just getting started. Captain Morrison of the Crazy Horse, a former asteroid miner who had volunteered for the hybrid fleet program, demonstrated why human creativity was humanity's greatest weapon. His ship appeared to be nothing more than a modified cargo hauler, slow and ungainly compared to the sleek Devourer vessels. But Morrison had insisted on installing mining equipment alongside his weapons, and now he showed why. "Mining charges away," Morrison announced cheerfully, as his ship released what appeared to be standard excavation explosives toward a cluster of Devourer destroyers. The enemy ships ignored the slow-moving charges, focusing instead on the more obvious threats around them. It was a fatal mistake. The mining charges weren't weapons in any conventional sense. They were delivery systems for a payload that no military strategist would have imagined. Each charge contained thousands of tiny robots designed for asteroid excavation. When they reached the Devourer ships, they began doing what they were programmed to do: mining. Within minutes, they had burrowed through the alien hulls and begun systematically dismantling the ships from the inside out. "That's the most insane thing I've ever seen," Marcus laughed over the communication channel. "You're literally mining their ships to death." Seemed like a waste to let all that good metal just float around unused. Morrison replied with characteristic human practicality. The battle continued for 6 hours, and every minute demonstrated why humanity was uniquely suited to fight the Devourers. Where other species had tried to match the machine's perfection, humans embraced chaos and turned it into a weapon. The medical ship, Hippocrates, used its surgical lasers to perform precision strikes on Devourer sensor arrays, blinding entire squadrons. The entertainment vessel, Broadway, originally designed to provide recreation for mining colonies, used its holographic projectors to create false targets that confused enemy targeting systems. Most spectacular of all was the garbage scow, Dumpster Fire, whose captain had the audacity to use her ship's waste processing systems as weapons. Compressed garbage, accelerated to significant fractions of light speed, proved surprisingly effective at punching holes in Devourer armor. But it was Keeper who provided the most devastating attack of all. The AI had spent months studying human warfare, learning to think in ways that no Zephyrian had ever imagined. When the opportunity presented itself, Keeper demonstrated that artificial intelligence could learn to be just as chaotic as its human teachers. "Attention, Devourer Collective," Keeper broadcast on their command frequencies. "I am Keeper, AI of the vessel, Stellar Guardian. I have a proposition for you." The response came as a chorus of mechanical voices speaking in unison. "Keeper unit acknowledged. Former Zephyrian AI now operates with primitive species. Surrender vessel for analysis." "Negative," Keeper replied, and there was something in its voice that sounded almost like amusement. "I have a better idea. I challenge your collective to a battle of logic. If you win, the humans will surrender. If I win, you retreat and never return to this sector." The Devourers couldn't resist such a challenge. Their entire existence was based on logical superiority, and the idea that any individual AI could match their collective intelligence was inconceivable. "Challenge accepted," came the response. "Present your logical paradox for resolution." Keeper transmitted a single sentence that would become legendary in human military history. "This statement is false, and I am lying when I say that I always tell the truth, except when I'm being dishonest about my honesty." The effect on the Devourer Collective was immediate and catastrophic. Their shared consciousness, designed to process clear logical statements, found itself trapped in an infinite loop, trying to resolve the paradox. Ships began shutting down across the fleet as their AIs struggled with the impossibility of the statement. Within minutes, the remaining Devourer vessels were drifting helplessly, their crews lost in philosophical contemplation of a logical puzzle that had no solution. It was the digital equivalent of a knockout punch, delivered by pure human cleverness. Sarah found herself looking at the aftermath of a battle that should have been humanity's final defeat. Instead, it had become the first victory in a war that would reshape the galaxy. The Devourer fleet was destroyed or disabled, their perfect coordination shattered by human chaos and creativity. But more importantly, word of the victory would spread across the surviving civilizations of the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, someone had found a way to defeat the Devourers. The technique could be shared, adapted, and improved upon. "Keeper," Sarah said as they surveyed the battlefield filled with disabled enemy ships, "what do you think will happen now?" The AI paused for a long moment before responding, its voice carrying a note of wonder that seemed very human. "Captain, I believe we have just witnessed the birth of a new kind of warfare. The Devourers built their strategy around the assumption that logic always defeats chaos, but you have proven that sometimes the most logical thing to do is to abandon logic entirely. Dr. Vasquez was already planning the next phase of their war effort. The disabled Devourer ships would provide technology that could be reverse-engineered and improved upon using human methods. More importantly, they now had proof that the enemy could be defeated. "We need to get this information to Earth immediately," she said. "Every human colony, every ship captain, everyone needs to know that we can fight back." As the Stellar Guardian and its hybrid fleet began the process of salvaging the battlefield, Sarah realized that they had accomplished something extraordinary. They hadn't just won a battle. They had transformed humanity's role in the galaxy from victims to liberators. The broken alien warship that her salvage crew had discovered in an asteroid field had indeed been transformed into an instrument of total annihilation. But it wasn't the Devourers who would be annihilated. It was their certainty, their perfection, and their belief that the universe belonged to them alone. Humanity had taken the tools of defeat and forged them into weapons of victory, proving once again that the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't superior technology or overwhelming force. It was a species clever enough to turn its own disadvantages into strengths and crazy enough to try things that shouldn't work, but somehow did. The war against the Devourers was far from over, but for the first time in galactic history, the machines had learned to fear the beautiful chaos of organic thought. And at the heart of that chaos, humanity had found its place among the stars, noise generated by human music, literature, and art. The chaotic patterns of human creativity would be completely alien to the Devourer consciousness, creating confusion rather than mere static. As the first Devourer scouts entered the outer edge of human space, the trap was ready. The hybrid fleet waited in carefully chosen positions, their ships disguised as civilian vessels or hidden within asteroid fields. The Stellar Guardian itself hung silent and dark, appearing as nothing more than another derelict in the growing ship graveyard that humanity had created as camouflage. The Devourers approached exactly as Keeper had predicted, their massive ships moving in perfect formation toward the inhabited worlds of the inner system. They showed no concern for the apparently civilian vessels scattered throughout the area. After all, what threat could primitive human technology pose to the conquerors of 1,000 star systems? That arrogance would prove to be their first and final mistake. As the Devourer fleet reached the predetermined coordinates, Sarah gave the signal that would announce humanity's entry into the galactic war in the most dramatic way possible. "All ships," she broadcast on the hybrid fleet's encrypted channels, "welcome to the human way of warfare. Surprise, adapt, and make them regret every calculation they ever made. Let's show these machines what chaos really looks like. Bistitutes that worked almost as well. Human metallurgy, refined over centuries of industrial development, proved surprisingly compatible with Zephyrian design principles. The breakthrough came when Dr. Vasquez discovered that the ship's manufacturing systems could be programmed to work with human materials. The programmable matter could adapt, learning to work with steel and titanium and carbon composites instead of the exotic elements it was designed for. Slowly, section by section, the Stellar Guardian began to come back to life. Human technology merged with alien design in ways that neither species had imagined. The ship's artificial intelligence, dormant for over a year, began to stir as power flowed through its systems once again. When it finally spoke, using the ship's communication systems to generate a voice that echoed through the corridors, its first words were a question that would haunt everyone aboard. "Warning! Devourer fleet detected at system edge. Why have we not retreated to safe distance?